all of the surrounding events that has to do with this amazing court trial of Sean P. Diddy Combs. Combs, a music mogul, a cultural icon, a billionaire with a B, but also a man with broken beginnings. Cassie, the face of her testimony. You see, Cassie's story is more than just celebrity gossip. It's a testimony of survival, and it's a testimony of courage. She was one of the brave ones. Success doesn't erase pain. Sometimes success amplifies it. What will it profit a man if he gain the whole world, but forfeits, loses his soul? Welcome to Imagine Greater, the podcast, where we challenge the status quo, where we reimagine what's possible in business, in leadership, and in life. I'm Michelle, your host for today, and I'm always excited that we're going to be talking about a topic that has dominated the headlines. All of the surrounding events that has to do with this amazing court trial of Sean P. Diddy Combs. We're diving into it here at Imagine Greater. So pull up your seats, lean in, and let's get into today's topic. I am so excited that you are going to be a part of this, because we're going to take it from an angle that we're just not going to be talking about the trial. We're going to be talking about how life changes when trauma hits. Trauma shapes people long before they know its name. Have you ever experienced trauma? Just think about that as we dive into today's topic. When a child loses a parent to violence, something shifts deep inside. Let's use Sean P. Combs' story as the lens into trauma, resilience, and power. I love this quote that says, "A child that is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth." Oh, I just stagger over that quote. Let's get into that better. A child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. Meaning, how can you feel better in a village that didn't accept you? And that's where we meet the Sean P. Diddy Combs story. You know, this Bible verse says, "The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice." The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. That's Proverbs 23 and 24. Let's contrast what happens when the father is absent, especially through violence. When a father is absent, especially through violence. So let's get into the Sean P. Diddy Combs story. Let's do the backstory. Combs, a music mogul, a cultural icon, a billionaire with a B, but also a man with broken beginnings. Success doesn't erase pain. Sometimes success amplifies it. I will say that again. Success doesn't erase pain. Sometimes success amplifies it. The Bible talks, what will it profit a man if he gain the whole world, but forfeits, loses his soul? That's in Mark 8 and 36. Here's a question for you, my listeners. How often do we celebrate someone else's achievement without asking what is the cost on their soul? Just marinate with that question right now. How often we celebrate. We say, look at him doing big things. Look at her making difference. Look at her sitting at the boardroom table. But do we ever question at what cost is it on their soul? Let's just think about that for a moment. So what is the human cost of all of this? When we talk about the Sean P. Diddy Combs and the trauma that came out of that, and the stories and the events that imploded after that, right? What about it? Behind every headline is a person, is someone with scars that may never fully heal. We see the big headlines. We see them flashing in lights all the time. We be like, And we are taken aback. We're shocked and we're wondering what just happened. But behind all of that is a human being with scars. You see, courage is costly. Speaking truth against power is risking reputation, livelihood, and safety. There were some brave ones that stood up in the trial of Sean P. Diddy Combs and spoke out, regardless of the pain, regardless of the backlash, the battles, regardless of what came at them. They spoke up, but it comes with a price. It comes with a cost. It affects reputation. It affects livelihood. It affects their actual safety of their lives. But they spoke out. And those we here at Imagine Greater are calling the brave ones. Bible says, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all are destitute. Who are destitute? We must speak up. You know, I hear this statement all the time. When you see something, say something. When you hear something, say something. Are you one of the brave ones who will say something? Because as we talk about the Sean P. Diddy Combs, as we talk about the trauma of his girlfriends and everyone who were affected, of Cassie, many people saw it but were afraid to speak up. This, if it didn't do anything else, this trial, it brought to light of how many times we, and I say we, including me, see things time after time after time, and we say nothing. And the person who we see it happening to is left not only to bear the scars of the abuse or whatever may have transpired, but they're left to deal with the scars of no one saying anything. There was just silence. I see it, yeah, but I was afraid to say something. The Bible has called us to speak up for those who are destitute and who cannot speak for themselves. So, question for you to reflect on. Are we as a culture choosing comfort over truth? Are we globally, not just here in the Bahamas, not just in the United States, are we as a culture, as a world, as a society, choosing comfort over truth? Just think about that right now. As we begin to talk about the Cassie aspect of this story, Cassie, the face of her testimony. You see, Cassie's story is more than just celebrity gossip. It's a testimony of survival and it's a testimony of courage. She was one of the brave ones. Abuse hides behind glamour. Control masquerades as love until silence is broken. It couldn't go on indefinitely. Someone had to take the stand, even if it meant the person being abused is the one who was speaking up and standing out. And that was Cassie. I love this quote by Alice Walker that says, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. The most common way people give up their power is thinking that they don't have any. We all have power within us. Power to change, power to become greater, power to make the difference in the lives of others. But are we aware and using that power? Because every day we be like, oh, I'm just going to throw up my hands in the air and it's just, I can't do this. I don't think anything that I do would make a difference or change anything. Stop that today and realize that you relinquish your power when you think you don't have any. So, where do we excuse brilliance while ignoring brokenness? Where? Think about your own life. Think about society. Think about your sphere of influence. Where do we excuse brilliance? Because sure, P. Diddy Combs, no matter what we say about him, he is brilliant. But we were ignoring the brokenness of the people who were affected on his way to being brilliant. Where do we excuse brilliance while ignoring brokenness? And you know I always have to go back to the Bible. Isaiah 10:1 says, woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees. The Bible is simply saying is be aware of those people who on their way to being a billionaire, on their way to being successful, or maybe even you on your way to accomplishing your goal. Do not make decrees or laws. Do not pass anything in your business, in your life, or do not set out a plan that will oppress others. Success should never come at the price of others losing. It should never. A great business deal, my business partner and husband who died used to say, he said, a great business deal is when everybody wins. And you know, in the world today, they like to say, not everybody can win, but everybody can win. When we consider that who's ever at the table, who's in our sphere of influence, when we consider how our actions will affect others, everyone can win. But it starts with you making that change. We may not can change the P. Diddy Combs of the world, but what we can do, become better right where we are by changing the way we live, the way we do business, the way we show up in society. Let's not excuse brilliance while ignoring brokenness. So who's accountable for the healing of all of those who were affected? And even as we talk about Sean P. Diddy Combs healing as well, not because you're a billionaire, a millionaire, whomever, and on your way to that brilliance, you trample over people. At some point, the repercussions of his action has to affect him as well. So the accountability of the healing looks like what? Justice and compassion are not enemies. That's food for thought, right? Think about that. Justice, not because there's justice, meaning there doesn't have to be compassion. Justice and compassion are not enemies. Accountability is an act of love for both survivors and offenders. I'll say that again. Accountability is an act of love for both the survivors and the offenders. Remember, I said those who are doing the offended, those who are trampling over others, those who are creating the trauma are also affected intentionally. All right? So, in this quote by Thomas Aquinas, it says, mercy without justice is the mother of dissolution. Justice without mercy is cruelty. Justice without mercy is cruelty. Mercy without justice is the mother of dissolution. They go hand in hand. They work together. So how can we be more compassionate to our fellow man as on our way to success? We do not have to trample and cause trauma. So, what's the Bible take on this? He has shown you a model. What is good? And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly. This is what the Lord requires of you now, as on your way to success, because the desire of your heart, that you have this burning desire to become successful, to be more, to be a speaker, trainer, and coach, to own your businesses. God placed that desire in your heart. He did that, right? But he requires us to act justly. He requires us to love. He requires us to have mercy. He requires us to walk humbly with our God. That's Micah 6:8. So in the healing process, know that justice and compassion are not enemies. We can fight for justice. At the same time, we can have compassion. They go hand in hand, right? So as we continue with this amazing and jaw-dropping story, we look at it through the lens of faith. We look at it through the lens of forgiveness. We look at it through the lens of leading differently, where we understand that grace doesn't mean silence. Real forgiveness begins with truth. Real forgiveness begins with truth, right? There's a Bible verse that says in Matthew 7:16 that says, you will know them by their fruits. So when I love this quote that says that when someone shows you who they are, believe them. But I love this next quote that says, when someone shows you who they are the first time, believe them. Do not say that was just a one-off. Oh, they wasn't that bad. Oh, they were having a bad day. Oh, you don't know what happened when they arrived here. No, that's who they are. Believe them, right? So reflect on this question for a moment. As leaders in business, in families, or in communities, wherever you find yourself here, are we creating cultures of silence or cultures of courage? Wherever you are, I encourage you, employ you from Imagine Greater to be that vessel of honor, to be the difference maker, be the one that influence cultures, that influence society, that influence your families, that make a difference right where you are as a leader, as a business owner, as a mom, as a dad. To influence others, to change the culture, to change the status quo from silence to courage, to speak up, to say something, to understand that on our way to being brilliant, to being excellent, to accomplishing our goals, do not ignore the brokenness of others, especially when we ourselves may have created that trauma. Here's the key message that we at Imagine Greater want you to get. This isn't about canceling people, but it's about refusing to cancel our humanity. A lot happened in the life of Sean Diddy Combs. A lot happened during the weeks of his trial. A lot happened for Cassie and the other people who were affected to the trauma that he imposed on them. A lot happened. But it's not about canceling him, canceling those ones that speak up, canceling his environment, canceling everybody who he was connected to. But it's about refusing to cancel the humanity of it all. Because let's face it, in the midst of all of that, lied human beings. Human beings that needed to be loved, that needed to be heard, that needed us to show mercy, that needed him to show mercy for them, that needed compassion, that needed a listening ear. So let's refuse to be the people that cancel the humanity of it all. The Bible says again in Isaiah 43:19, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" God is doing a new thing always. This may have happened. That may have been wrong. This may have been crazy. But in the midst of all that, ultimately the purpose of God is being revealed. Right? In your life, in my life. There's something good that we can take out of that. And we at Imagine Greater are telling you, take the humanity aspect out of that trial. See the people, even Sean P. Diddy Combs, who were affected, and extend grace, extend mercy, and show compassion. Even though justice is being done, he still needs our compassion. He still needs our prayers. He still needs our love, because he's still human. So here's our call to action for you. Celebrate integrity, not just talent. Believe survivors when they tell you something. You know, the other day, my daughter called me, my stepdaughter, my bonus children, she called me, and she lives in an environment that is a little toxic. And when she called me crying. And immediately, like a mama bear, I stopped and I went and I got her. And when she told me what her stepfather was doing, he took her devices, he threw her in the closet. And listen, we were on our way to the police station as fast as you could think it. And what I love about this incident, the police did not take it lightly. They were on it. Whether they were there to give him a harsh warning or just lock him up in the cell for the night, he understood that he couldn't do that again. Because the trauma he placed on her will take months for her to go through the healing process. You threw an 18-year-old in the closet and took all of her devices with no real idea that you were disciplining her. She don't even know what it was about. But for whatever reason, he did that. So I want us, and I believed her when she called me, and I acted immediately. Take that same thing take that same action when somebody tells you something is happening to them. Believe the survivor. Because what is interesting, they had to survive that trauma to come and tell you what was happening with them. So even just them surviving They deserve to be heard and believed. Okay? Another call to action that we have for you: hold leaders accountable. Do not excuse leaders. I'm not saying be disrespectful. We're not saying call them out in public. Find a quiet moment and say, could I speak with you a moment? It's about such and such. And whether they are receptive to what you're saying, you still be the bold one, the brave one that we're calling. Those who speak up, say something to the leader. Okay? Make room for redemption. This is another call to action. Make room for redemption that begins with truth and change. Make room for redemption that begins with truth and change. Everyone can be redeemed. No one is a lost cause. In God's kingdom, nothing and no one is wasted. So make room for it. We're always quick to judge until it's our time to be judged, right? So make room for redemption of others, because someday it may be you needing to be redeemed. So what could a possible path to redemption look like for Sean P. Diddy Combs? Well, first, you have to acknowledge, he has to acknowledge his behavior. He has to speak truth. He has to say, I did harm. Openly admit what he did. That is the first step to redemption. If he is not admitting that he actually did something, then what can be changed? Because awareness is the beginning of transformation. When we know better, we do better. So first, he needs to acknowledge that. Secondly, he needs to listen to the victims, whether it's a public forum or a private forum. Listen intently. Let them tell their side of what they experience. Listen. Sometimes victims of trauma just want to be heard. Maybe the person hearing them, he's in prison now, may not be able to do anything right away about it. But just hearing them. So first, acknowledge the truth of it, that he actually did something. Secondly, listen to the victims. Thirdly, be transparent. Own it. Don't get waved, I made a mistake. No. Be transparent about everything, about the wrongdoings, if you intend to change. People will forgive when you own it. I know I will. Own it. You've messed up. Be transparent, not vague. I think I may have made some mistakes in life. No. I think I did this, that, and the other. Be specific. Transparency. So acknowledge truth. Listen to the victims. Be transparent. And turn away. Understand, what does that mean? That means repentance. Repentance means to turn from one way of doing something and turn to do something differently that is better. Set up a lifestyle of perhaps donating to survivors' benefit, or perhaps making recompense financially to those who would have experienced loss and trauma to their health needs. You have to be tangible. He has to be tangibly affected. You can't just give words and lip service to it. After he's owned it, after he has listened, after he's been transparent, now those actions have to lead into tangible resolutions for the victims and for those who are experiencing it, maybe not at his hands, but at the hands of others. He can also be a part of counseling. One of the things is he has trauma. Hurt people. So part of his redemption, he must go through counseling, an intense counseling. That not somebody who see him as a mogul and wanna suck up to him, for lack of a better word, but somebody who will be real with him, tell him the truth, and demand of him to come up higher after the counseling, to do the necessary steps for him to heal and for him to not be a repeat offender, right? Because if we're not dealing with it, then it gets repeated. So he has to acknowledge it. He has to listen. He has to be transparent in it. He has to submit to counsel. He has to give back. He has to make amends, financial compensation. and showing evidence of changed behavior. That has to be done in real time, and treating people differently. And that has to be seen. People may say, oh, he just publicly doing this for people to see. No, people need to see publicly that he's a changed man after counseling and after making repentance. They need to do it publicly, because the revelation of what Sean P. Diddy Combs did was a public event. So he had to publicly show a pattern of changed behavior. That's the path to redemption. The call to action again: celebrate integrity, not just talent. Hold leaders accountable. Believe the survivors. Make room for redemption that begins with truth and change. Friends, let's imagine a world where power doesn't corrupt, where truth doesn't hide, and where wholeness is celebrated as much as success. We at Imagine Greater are so excited that you've been a part of this podcast. We thought that we would bring you from a different aspect of healing, of compassion, of mercy, rather than just getting into the trial. Everybody knows the story, but we wanted to bring a different point of view. And that's how we reimagine a better world, right? A better society, a better home, a better business, and us better in leadership. Okay? So it has been our pleasure to bring you this episode. As always, we want you to share this podcast with friends, with family, with anybody you know who this will help. Also, click the subscription button. It's there for you to be a part of our family. We look forward to hearing from you again and joining us on another amazing podcast where we reimagine life better, life greater in leadership, in family, in business, and in life. It has been our pleasure. I am Michelle Bethel Gibson, your host, and I can't wait to see you again on another podcast.